Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of I Am Sat. I am your host, Maddie Quinney, and I hope you all have had a lovely week, whatever that looks like. If it wasn't lovely, I hope you're taking care of yourself. That is really, really important. But yeah, we're back. We're so back. If you are not on YouTube watching this, I am fully in a faux fur coat today. It is on theme. We are going to be covering some animal topics, some animal content. So we're out here wearing this. It is faux. I have confirmed that, so don't even fret. Also, I did get it at the thrift store, so, you know, even if it was real, hopefully that's a little bit more, ethical. But as Kelly Benjamin from Real Housewives of New York City said, PETA isn't saying don't wear fur. They're saying don't abuse animals. And so I'm not abusing animals. I'm just wearing fur. So period. That's where I'm at today. Anyway, welcome back. Okay, so we are going to just jump right in to the episode. If you're new here, I do kind of like a banger of the week, local business of the week. Last week I did a fun fact of the day. This week I'm going to just do a little catch up vibe with you. But today I'll start with the banger of the week. If you're new here, I attend therapy religiously. That is my religion. I've been attending therapy pretty much every week for the last 6 years. And my lovely therapist, she is amazing. She always, whenever I have a session that's largely about being really hard on myself, which is pretty often, more often than I'd like to admit, she pulls out this deck of cards, and they're called self-compassion cards, and we do a little exercise. And this last session I said, I need to buy a deck of these. I need to do that. So I did. And so anyway, you cannot see this, I'm sure, but it is a deck of cards called The Awakening Self-Compassion Cards by Anne Sophie Biasetti. She has an LCSW, which is she's basically a therapist, and she incorporates a lot of Buddhism into her practices. And each of these cards is just one card. It'll tell you a little fun fact about self-compassion and why it either helps your body and your nervous system, or really any fun fact about it. And there's a theme to every card. And then on the back, there is a practice that you can do to implement the teaching of the front side of the card. So we're going to do one with each other today. We are going to do one with each other, and I know I need it. If you don't need it, if you're already so kind to yourself, I love that for you, and share that with me and everyone else, please, because God knows I need some of that. So I picked out a card today. The title of it is called Learning to Purify Your Mind. And it says, Buddha taught that there are certain mind states that purify our minds and certain mind states that defile our minds, meaning the certain thoughts we hold day in and day out, even moment to moment, leave us feeling either internally strong and healthy in mind or disempowered and unbalanced. Self-critical thoughts do the latter. They actually change our nervous system and create tension in our body, leaving our whole system feeling unbalanced. Self-compassionate thoughts purify. The moment we can take in gentle, kind thought, we stabilize our entire nervous system, soften tension in our body, and balance our mind. Self-compassion is one of the purest and highest mind states we can cultivate. And then at the bottom, it has a little mantra that says, self-compassionate thoughts purify the mind. I think it's often, at least for me personally, it's often that my inner critic convinces me that by being hard on myself, that is what's going to help me improve, and all of that I don't even know why it believes that, because it's just not the way it is. Every time I'm so critical on myself, I spiral deeper and deeper into a mess, and that feels even harder to get out of. So I really love this card because self-compassionate thoughts purify the mind. And on the back it has a little practice. I won't get into that now, but I will post a picture of this on my Instagram if you are curious about it. It's really sweet and kind. One of the mantras that has you repeat to yourself is, I can be kind to myself in this very moment. Kindness is what I need, not criticism. So yeah, just a little food for thought, a little cute thing to send you off on your day, whatever time of day or day of the week it is. I know I needed that, not gonna lie. And yeah, just remember, it's always better to be kind to yourself than hate on yourself. It's way more, I like have to tell myself this every fucking day, but it is just way more productive to be kinder to yourself. Because if you're hard on yourself and you hate yourself, you can't hate yourself into the life you want to live, and you can't hate yourself into the person you want to be. So yeah, just a good reminder, I guess. Okay, local business of the week. We are shouting out the Other Side Thrift Store. I love this place. If you know me or are friends with me, you know that I go on rants about this place all the time. There are 2 locations here in Utah, one in Murray, one in Mill Creek. And I love this place. Not only do they have such a good selection and really good prices, but they also all of their employees are ex-convicts. So people who have gotten out of prison, who need a job. So they employ all of these people, and they're all so kind and so lovely and so helpful. And I don't know, I just think like the whole MO of the business is really cool and inspiring. And yeah. And then if you're interested in finding the goods, I personally find the best clothing items and like the best dishes. And so I've gotten like lucky with artwork sometimes at the Murray location. But okay, really fast. The dishes are phenomenal there, and they're so well priced. Like, they're always doing deals where it's like $5 5 for $1. So like you can get 5 glass cups, like wine glasses or cocktail glasses, whatever, for $1. It's crazy. I was in charge of getting glasses for my sister's like vow renewal or like 10-year anniversary party with her husband over the summer, and I had to buy glasses for, I think it was like 30 something people, something like that. I can't remember, but I just remember spending literally $16 on glassware. It was crazy. So highly recommend going to the Murray location for that. If you're wanting to go to the Mill Creek location, they have phenomenal furniture and really good artwork. So hit that up if you're in Utah. It is the best. I love it there. And yeah, as far as like catching up goes on my life, I'll keep it brief, but I am currently, sorry, I'm like always interrupting myself, but I've been on a health journey for the last little bit. I would say ever since maybe November. I've been really serious about like going to the gym, eating healthy, just moving my body and wanting, to get strong and fit, whatever. And I realized that now that I have that on lock, that is just a part of my life now. I go to the gym like 3 to 5 times a week, and it is just a part of my daily life pretty much to move my body. Now I feel like I need to graduate into more of like a mental health journey. Mental health for me is kind of, it ebbs and flows constantly. It's always on an upward trajectory, but, she's still spiraling. She's still not having great days or weeks or sometimes months, it happens. And again, I'm on like an upward trajectory. I mean, God willing, right? Like, I've been in therapy for 6 years. I better be on an upward trajectory. I definitely am. That is for damn sure. However, again, I still have moments that feel so low to the point where I'm just like, do I need to be going this far down the spiral? Like, I feel like I'm better than this, you know? And it's okay to like struggle with mental health, of course, like everyone struggles with that, but I don't know. I just feel like I thought I was at a place in my life where maybe I wouldn't go that far down. So I decided I need to, I don't know, change something up in my life. So a common theme in my life for literally forever, I would say, but especially since I've been married, is I just never get alone time. And it's been significantly worse probably within the last year because we've made a lot of new friends. We have already had friends. Like, I personally have had established friendships. I've made a lot of new friendships. And then, you know, you have in-laws and my actual family members. You know, I have so many, you know, people I'm constantly trying to keep up with and visit and spend quality time with. And then, you know, I have a full-time job. I just like don't get alone time ever. And then I have to like hang out with Spencer, you know, not have to. Yeah, I have to hang out with my husband who's so sweet to me. No, but really like I love him and I always want to hang out with him, but I just find that I'm not spending enough time alone as a result. And so this has been a common theme for me for years. And I finally decided, I've known for a long time that I want to be, like, it would benefit me greatly to be a morning person because I would just have more time to myself. And I finally bit the bullet this last week. I printed out a calendar and I said for 3 weeks, I'm making a commitment to myself that I'm waking up at 6 a.m. every morning. And we're doing the damn thing. And you know what they say? They say it takes 21 days to form a habit. So I'm going to try. And right now I'm on day 4 and I feel great. Honestly, this is already changing my life. And I can't believe it's taken me so long to get here, especially considering because I've alluded to this before about my tarot reading, my infamous tarot reading that I had for my 28th birthday. But she even mentioned in the tarot reading, like, hey, girl, you got to, like, get on lock with your routines. Like, you need to, something is off in you and you need to find more alone time, whether that's in the morning, evening, whatever it is, but you need to make a routine of it or else you are not going to be well. And you know what? She was right. She was so right. Thank you, Jillian. So now we're here becoming a morning person. And I'm excited about it. Honestly, like, again, day 4 of this, and I already feel so grounded. Like, I genuinely feel so grounded, and it's becoming easier and easier every day to wake up at 6. Honestly, the hardest part about this is getting out of bed. I have never, ever, ever been a morning person in my entire life. And every time I wake up in the morning, I love it. But it's never enough to make me get out of the fucking bed when I probably should. And, you know, lately for work too, it's like, you know, I start work at 9 a.m., have to be literally in the office in my chair at 9 a.m. and I'm walking in at like 9:45 a.m. because I'm waking up at what time? The time I need to leave. So it's bad. It's gotten really bad. And I don't know. I just felt like it was time. It was finally time to bite the bullet and do it. And I've been loving it. So yeah, I will keep you updated on how that goes. I'm actually going to start like a little TikTok series about it to keep myself accountable and also just to journal, I guess, my journey in it all. I am going to make a video for every week that goes by and talk about kind of like what I've learned from this experience and what I've learned about myself and everything. So I'm excited. I'm excited to see where I'm at and at the end of the 3 weeks. I already feel so much more like in line with myself and grounded and I feel like more me than I've felt in a while, and it feels good. And I still struggle. It's not like I don't, but I just feel like I'm way more capable of doing what's good for me when I'm feeling in line with myself. And again, like I mentioned with the self-compassion card, I really struggle at being compassionate towards myself. I really, really do. And I feel like this morning or like becoming a morning person journey is in and of itself an act of self-respect because my whole point is to spend more time with myself and to do what I know I've needed to do for a very long time. So yeah, it's really fun. I'm excited to see where this goes. So anyway, without further ado, let's get to the meat of the episode, shall we? Okay, so I had the thought of doing an episode about Jane Goodall because I have always been very fascinated with evolution and specifically like how we relate to monkeys. And I saw recently, well, I say recently, but whenever Alex Cooper from Call Her Daddy interviewed Jane Goodall, I saw that and I said, oh, like, I'm actually so curious about her and her story, her journey, what all that was. Like, I actually have no idea. I always thought the only thing I knew about Jane Goodall, or the only thing I thought I knew about Jane Goodall was that the Jane in Tarzan was based off of her. That is a myth. That is not true. The story and legend of Tarzan was already around when she was born. And that actually ended up being a huge part of her own story, which I'll get to. But yeah, I've always been really fascinated about evolution, monkeys, all of that. But specifically lately, I've been reading Gift from the Sea, which I talked about last week by Anne Lindbergh. And it's been changing my life. It's been changing my life and also making me realize like the wisdom of older women is so important to learn from, especially around like menopause age. I just feel like women around that age especially have like an enlightening moment and like the fog lifts and they just see everything for what it is. And I feel like they're so wise and there's so much I can learn from them. So it's been making me feel inspired to learn more from older women. And then, yeah, I had the thought to just do some research on Jane Goodall because she's deceased at this point, but you know, she's older and she's actually like the same age as the author of this book, pretty much. They were born around the same time. And so it's kind of like perfect. Also, I wanted to clarify, last week I was talking about Gift from the Sea and I think I said that the author had like 2 kids. No, she had like 7 kids. 7 children. And was 70 something when she wrote the book. Anyway, so I think I just had to clarify that because I don't want to be out here saying misinformation, even though I'm just a dumb girl and sometimes I don't know what I'm talking about and I will own that to the day I die. Okay. So anyway, Jane Goodall. Also another reason really fast why I wanted to do this was because I started Sapiens a while ago, which is a book. Sapiens is a brief history of humankind written by a man named Yuval Noah Harari. So that book is just so interesting because it's all about evolution. And, you know, I've always been curious about that, especially since leaving religion, because I am so fascinated by the story of religion and just the story of humans and history in general. It's like, what's actually real? What actually happened? Like, we're all just out here getting accounts of what other people interpret, but is that actually real? Like, we don't know, you know? So anyway, I've always been fascinated about history, evolution, all of that stuff. So without further ado, let's like get started. Jane Goodall, baby. Who is she? So she was an only child. She was born in Hampstead, London, which is just northwest of London. It seems to be kind of like a neighborhood or a little like district of London, pretty close to the actual city. She was born April 3rd of 1934. What zodiac is this? Aries. You know what? Okay, every time I do this and look up someone's zodiac, I'm probably just full of shit, but she's giving Aries vibes. I feel like every Aries I know is so dead set on what they want to do. It's like their way or the highway kind of thing. Like you can reason with them, but if they have a certain trajectory of where they're going to go or what they're going to do or what their narrative is about a situation, they will stick to that to the day they die. Unless they're ready to be proved wrong, if that makes sense. And they will see something through. They will see it through. And they will stand 10 toes down on that. So, you know what? She did that. She really did that. Born April 3rd, 1934, died October 1st, 2025. Get this. She was on tour. Like, her last year of life, she was on tour in America, speaking to thousands of people about environment conservation and, you know, her story and everything. And she was staying with a friend in Beverly Hills and literally died in her sleep. Honestly, she deserved to go that way. Like, could you imagine dying in your sleep? Like, that's honestly iconic, and I would love to die in my sleep as well, because I don't really want to know that I'm dying. You know what I mean? I just want to, like, go to sleep and never wake up. You know what I mean? Like, I want to go to sleep thinking that everything's totally fine and just pass on as if, you know, nothing happened, you know? Like, that's so iconic. What's also iconic about that, I'll get to this later, but one of her favorite chimpanzees that she studied died similarly, and I just think that's iconic. So, but I'll get to that later. When she was growing up, she was really close with her mom. Her dad wasn't really in the picture a whole lot, and she basically was just raised by her mom in London. And her mom was like the queen of all moms. Literally, I said, "Can you adopt me? I know you are deceased also, but please adopt me." Like, she was the most supportive mom ever. And Jane grew up just being in nature all the time and so fascinated about nature. She has this story she told on Call Her Daddy, where she was probably like 6 years old or something, and she was outside playing in the dirt in the garden, as she was always doing all the time, and she brought a handful of worms into her bed, and her mom came into her room and saw all these worms in her bed, and instead of getting angry, she was like, "Hey, Jane, worms don't have legs, so they can't be inside, they have to be outside." And I just thought that was really cool, like, her approach to that, because I feel like a lot of parents, especially during that era, would have gotten so mad, like, "What did you do? Like, you ruined the sheets," you know? But she looked at that as an opportunity to teach her about something Jane was obviously so passionate about, and that was really kind of the breeding ground for the rest of her life, honestly, and the trajectory and the legacy that she's left behind. Another thing is, like, Jane, as a small child, loved the story of Tarzan, loved it. And she says, I think it was in Call Her Daddy, or it was in the documentary I watched, can't remember which one. Maybe she said it in both, honestly. But she talks about how the only thing they got wrong in Tarzan was that Tarzan married the wrong Jane. Like, she was obsessed with Tarzan, and ever since she was a small child, she was like, "I'm going to go live with the apes. I'm going to be Tarzan. Like, that is what I'm going to do." And her mom, instead of shutting that down and saying, like, "That's ridiculous, Jane, like, that's crazy, you can't make a living off of that," you know, instead of doing that, she nurtured that dream and was like, "You want to live with the apes? Okay, like, you're gonna live with the apes, like, that's great for you." I just love that. It's so cool. And what Jane says too about her mom is that she doesn't think that Jane would have, like, Jane doesn't think that she would have left the type of legacy she would have left without the support of her mom. And that just goes to show how important it is to be a good parent, I think, because Jane changed everything. And yeah, she changed everything in terms of evolutionary science. So when she was 26 years old, she was working for a researcher and scientist named Louis Leakey, and she was actually his secretary. And Louis Leakey, at the time, there were only 2 other studies going on in the world about monkeys and how they relate to evolution. And Louis Leakey wanted to create a study of his own, but wasn't really, from my understanding, didn't want to go himself or couldn't go himself. And Jane expressed interest in going on this expedition, And Lewis was like, yeah, I need someone who is open-minded and is just open to observing and doesn't have any biases. Because at the time, Jane had no education, no experience with animals. Well, besides her childhood experience, but she has no like formal experience with animals or research at all. And yeah, so he literally says, yeah, like go to Africa, go to Gombe. However, at the time, this didn't seem to be a very safe trip, obviously, because, at this point, humanity didn't know much about chimpanzees or monkeys or wildlife. And obviously, like I said, there were only 2 other studies going on about monkeys in the world. So very, very risky thing to go on. And I believe it was an American agency that funded the trip, funded the research. But their one condition was that Jane had to bring someone with her. And guess who went? It was her mom. Her mom was like, girl, I'm going with you. Of course. Like, let's go live with the monkeys. Like, you have said this your whole life. Let's go. So cute. Literally mother of the fucking year. Actually, mother of all years. Like, I want her to adopt me so bad. She said, I'm going. And her mom came from a family of like medicinal science. And so she set up a nursing station basically and tended to the people in the village. And so they went to Africa on this grant from America, and she just started day one just going into the wilderness. Also, really fast, I just want to cite my sources. I got a lot of this, the bulk of this information came from a documentary called Jane by National Geographic. I watched it on Disney Plus. I highly recommend anyone listening to watch this documentary. It is like the most beautiful film, one of the most beautiful films I've ever seen in my life. And I'll get there, but the filmmaker was given many awards for being like literally the most fantastic nature videographer in the world. And by all means, like truly such a stunning film. The cinematography is incredible. It's all filmed on film. Like it's so, oh my God, it's so beautiful. Anyway, anyone listening should go watch it. It is so good. Anyway, so Jane, day one, just goes and hikes into the wilderness, and she says, okay, I'm going to observe. I'm going to see what I can find. And days and days and days go on, and she eventually finds this clan of chimpanzees that she starts studying, but they're very trepidatious about her. They're very kind of afraid of her, cautious, not making any contact with her, but she just observes them. In fact, she says something that she said was, the way you learn an animal trusts you is when they know you're observing them and they still carry on as if you're not there. And after some time, she learned that obviously through experience, because there was one chimpanzee she named him David Graybeard because he had like a gray beard basically. And he started doing things around her, knowing that he was being observed, but still doing them anyway. And they like almost formed this like unspoken bond and started gaining the trust of him, but he still wouldn't like come very close to her. And, but she just kind of did her thing observing. She wasn't really making any groundbreaking observations at this time because there was she could only go so close to these chimps, like without being in danger, which is so interesting too, because people ask her all the time if she's ever felt like scared being in the wilderness, literally the African rainforest, like that's so crazy. And she said no, like I was never afraid. I never considered anything bad would happen. I was just there to observe, which I'm like, slay. That's really on the law of assumption right there, that assuming everything's fine and everything's going to be fine, because why wouldn't it be? I love that for her. Could never be me. Could never. Actually, no, I'm not saying that. It will be me. I will be that bitch. But Historically could never be me. That I would be freaking the fuck out. Are you kidding me? Oh yeah. When asked that if she was ever scared, she would say, no, I had the mindset of nothing is going to hurt me. I'm meant to be here. Like her whole thing is that she's always felt like she was meant to be with the monkeys. And she even expresses that as a child, when she would dream while she was sleeping, she always dreamed of her being as a man, performing masculine things like going into the forest and living among the apes. So super interesting. It seems to me that she's just always known that this was what her life was meant to be, which is really cool. Which also begs the question, not to like derail, but it begs the question, it's like, is destiny real, or do we just like come out the womb, have a passion, and just make it work? You know? Or do we like manifest that shit, or is that like already laid out for us? I want to, and not that I think I would ever have a stance on that, but I want to explore it. It makes me think about The Alchemist, the book. I don't know if anyone listening has read that. Honestly, maybe I've been thinking actually about what we should do for our next book club, and I've been considering that one because it's been a while since I've read it, and I remember when I read it, I said I need to read this once a year for sure. And a lot of it is about kind of destiny and like your path in life and everything. So stay tuned. Maybe we will make that the next book club book, which again, not to derail again, but if you're listening, just a reminder, I will be recording the book club episode on The Humans, I think on March 22nd. So if you haven't read that yet, read it. It's a really fast read. And don't forget to respond to my book club highlight with all of your thoughts, whether it's via voice message or just a DM. I don't give a shit, but I want to hear your thoughts because I've got a lot of thoughts and I want to know what everyone else is thinking. So if you feel comfortable, please engage. Anyway, back to the story, back to Jane. So at this point of her journey, she was alone a lot of the time, like pretty much all the time, because she was just alone in the wilderness. It was just her and the wilderness, and she would sleep out there. She just essentially lived out there, really. And she couldn't really, after almost 2 years of observing these chimpanzees, she wasn't really making any groundbreaking discoveries. However, one day, she watched David Greybeard, the ape that she started becoming closer to and could, eventually form a relationship with. She watched him take a blade of grass, peel the grass off of the blade, and then stick the blade of grass into a termite mound to retrieve termites. He took the stick out and then ate the termites, like a utensil basically. And that changed her life. That observation changed her life because it showed that they use tools just like humans. I can't remember if I already mentioned this on the episode, but at the time, in science, in evolutionary science, it was assumed that only humans had brains. Like no other species had a brain at the time. But seeing the chimpanzee use a tool was like the first indication that they have brains similar to ours. So she writes to Louis Leakey and says, get this, I just saw them use a tool. And he leaks the information and shares it with the world. And then Louis Leakey, in fact, was like, okay, well, we need to now consider what is man and are chimpanzees humans? Like, should we consider them human beings? And it kind of led to just massive discoveries about evolutionary science. And that's really what changed the game for Jane. And at this point, they said, okay, so there's actual science here, there's substance. Like, we need to document it. So National Geographic sent out Hugo, what's his name? Hugo van Lawick. He, was just commissioned by National Geographic. To go out to Gombe, Africa, live with Jane, and film everything she was observing. At the time, Jane hated this idea. She said, I don't want to be, I don't know how the chimps are going to react, because at this point, she's now starting to make friends with the whole clan of chimps. And I can't remember I think at this point, too, she was, let into their kind of home area where they all lived in trees and everything, and she was basically allowed by the apes to observe them from their home area. So she was worried, because she said, I've been out here for 2 years. Now you're going to bring some stranger. I don't know how they're going to react to you. But National Geographic said, tough shit. We need evidence. So he comes out. They didn't get along at first because Jane was just mad. And, the chimpanzees actually accepted him pretty quick, and Hugo started filming everything. And the documentary I watched is all of his lost footage that was recently recovered. So he filmed everything. And you guys, it's so stunning. It's so stunning. I don't know if I'm just reading into things, but genuinely the whole entire time my eyes were glued to the screen, and I said, I need every single frame posted up on my wall of this film. It is so beautiful. Anyway, Hugo comes out there. They don't get along at first, but Jane actually learns to love him, and they just have so much in common, and they actually end up falling in love and get married. And they kind of lived their lives, I think, back in the London area for a little bit. And, okay, sorry, I'm getting ahead of myself. They get married, and they're pursuing the study in Africa, making closer relationships with these apes. And at this point, these chimpanzees know where they live, and it all started because these chimpanzees started raiding the camp. The footage of it is crazy. The footage of it is crazy. They just came in droves and stampedes and were raiding the camp, taking everything that they had. So Jane, along with everyone else who lived there, came up with this idea to implement a steel trap box with a bunch of food, and to maintain the chaos. And the chimpanzees immediately picked up on it, and the chaos was put to rest, and they would just come every day and get their food out of this box and hang out for a bit. It's crazy. Also, there is one of the chimps, her name is Flo. Well, by Jane. Jane named her Flo. She is the matriarch of the clan, the head female. Also, I learned that males are the dominant sex in chimpanzee culture, which doesn't surprise me, obviously. But among the females, there are more dominant females than others, and Flo was one of them. What's crazy about this documentary, they show everything, you guys. It's crazy. They, at one point, Flo is ready to mate, and she's older, but she's ready to mate. And at this point, she had an infant child. I think, what was the name? Fifi. I think the name was Fifi, her infant child. And while she was being literally railed from behind by a line of male chimpanzees. It's crazy, you guys. Literally, she had a line of male chimpanzees waiting to fuck her. Her infant child, Fifi, is coming in and trying to break it up because he doesn't like what he's seeing. And it's so just fascinating. The culture between, comparing the culture of chimpanzees to us is so insane. I'm okay, so we are monkeys. We are monkeys for real. And I always knew this, but it was hitting a little close to home. It was a little close to home sometimes. For instance, so Flo, she's ready to mate, and she gets pregnant and births a baby chimp named Flint. And Flint and Flo's story is so fascinating to me because with all of this footage, like you watch this baby chimp grow up and you see like the dynamic between Flint and Flo and their bond and like the attachments, the types of attachment that Flint has on Flo, and like the way she handles him. Even like Jane talks about how Flo was like just the right amount of protective as a mother. Like she would let Flint get into trouble, but like not too much trouble to be unsafe. And the footage shows that, and it's so wild. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is literally how we parent our kids. Like, it's so crazy. And you know, they had a really, really tight bond. As they both aged, Flint was having a hard time kind of like severing the bond or becoming a bit more independent, and Flo was reaching the end of her life. Like she was old and didn't have the energy to, you know, sever the connection with Flint. So they were still pretty attached. And Flint, as like an adolescent, would like try to nurse still, and Flo would try to like swat him away, but he wouldn't have it, and she just didn't have the energy to deal with it. So yeah, it's crazy how like watching this stuff, because I'm like, oh my god, their mannerisms are so similar to ours. And even just like looking at their eyes, I'm like, okay, so we are monkeys. It's crazy. Anyway, I'll just finish the Flo story because I thought it was like tragic and also just, again, fascinating. But one day, Jane was looking for Flo, I think, and found her dead beside a river. And she explains it looks like her heart just stopped. It just all of a sudden stopped. And she was deceased along the river. And there's footage of this, but Flint is looking for Flo and finds Flo and is trying to wake her up. And Flo's obviously not moving. And reality finally sets into Flint that Flo is no longer here with us. And the depression, you guys, when the reality sets in, it's like, it's so, I want to say so human-like, but like they came here first, so, you know, whatever. But it is crazy. And then there's footage of Flint over the course of like 3 weeks, just depressed as fuck, not leaving his spot in the tree. And eventually, 3 weeks later, he dies of depression, of a broken heart. Isn't that tragic and fascinating? Because we're the same. We are the same. It's so crazy. Oh, God. Well, then get this. So Flo and Flint pass away. And this creates like a rift among the clan of chimpanzees, okay? They are unwell. And they kind of start separating off into two different types of groups. One goes like more north, one goes more south. And one day, they have footage of this. It's crazy. One day, like the tensions start like rising after the death of Flo and Flint. Tensions start to rise among the two groups. And one day, complete warfare breaks out. And chimps are killing other chimps from both clans. And one group of chimps end up winning and, you know, securing their spot in the forest. But some of the chimps literally died. They were killing each other. And, oh, God, it's kind of heavy because, I don't know, Jane was talking about how, like on the documentary, she was talking about how when up until that point, her perception of chimpanzees was just like pure and love and, you know, just, yeah, pure love and light, you know. And then to see something like that happen was really hard for her because it made her realize like warfare is in our DNA. Like, brutality is in our DNA. Like, we came from this. Like, we are not immune to this because this is in our DNA. So crazy. So crazy. I don't know why, but that just, like, blows my fucking mind. It blows my fucking mind. Anyway, as far as, like, her time in Africa goes, that's pretty much it. I mean, she ends up creating an entire institution for learning where students can come and do research and develop their own relationships with this clan of chimpanzees. And she kind of, you know, allows her to kind of pursue other ventures that she wants to do. At this point, I think, man, how old was she? I don't know how old she was. I would want to say like early 30s, maybe mid 30s, but at this point she was married to Hugo, and Hugo, his contract had ended with National Geographic to film content for the Gombe research, and so he had to pursue another contract in the Serengeti, which is, all of this is in Tanzania, Africa, by the way. Gombe is like more south, on the south end of Tanzania, but the Serengeti is like on the northern part of Tanzania. The Serengeti, I didn't know this until, you know, doing the research. So if you don't know, the Serengeti is like your quintessential Lion King ass, like African vibes. All types of animals everywhere. Giraffes, zebras, hippos, like everything. Literally, it's Lion King as fuck. That is the Serengeti. So Hugo gets a contract to go to film in the Serengeti. At this point, too, she had a child. She had never thought, she never thought herself as a mother, and never thought she'd ever have a child or even get married for that matter. But, you know, one thing, science happens and you end up with a fucking kid. And so she had a fucking kid, named him Grub, and truly cutest kid alive. Like, genuinely cutest child alive. If you watch the documentary, you'll see, but like, he was like this little towhead, like cutest child alive, and seemed to love everything that Jane and Hugo were up to. So cute. They just took him along with literally everything and showed them everything. Showed them the chimps, like everything. So anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. Basically, the whole point is she got married while she was in Gombe, got pregnant while she was in Gombe, had Grub, and then they had to move to the Serengeti to support Hugo in his contract there to film content. And it worked out practically because she had students researching at the facility and everything and in Gombe, so she could leave and bring Grub with her to support Hugo on this venture. But after some time, she was like, I can't, my heart belongs to those chimps in Gombe. Like, I can't do this, you know? And also Grub was becoming older. I think he was maybe 4 or 5 years old, maybe 6. And Jane was like, this man needs to be in public school. He needs to be socialized with other humans, other children. So he ends up going to live with his grandmother, Jane's mom, which, slay. We love Jane's mom. We love her. So Grub ends up living with her and attending school in London while Jane goes back to Gombe, does research, and does long distance with Hugo. They eventually get divorced because it was not working out for them, and they both were so lost in their own work that they couldn't prioritize their own relationship, and so they just kind of asked, like, why are we doing this anymore? So they got divorced, maintained a friendship, and yeah. Anyway, that's pretty much what her life was all about. I don't know where her son is now, but she eventually kind of left the Gombe stuff behind and pursued teaching large masses of people about environmental conservation and how we can help. Because as humans, she says that, you know, there's so many things that we do that we just don't think about, and we just do it, and we have no idea how that's going to affect the environment, our planet. And at this point, we've done way too much to maybe reverse a lot of the effects, but we can still try to teach other humans about respect for the environment and try to reinvent the wheel a little bit, which I say slay to, because I will go on that rant for hours and hours. I think the way that we just rip up entire ecosystems for what? A mall? Who the fuck cares? Who the fuck cares? Let's use what we already got. You know what I mean? Like, Jesus Christ. It's so bad. So, slay for her. Yeah, she kind of just like spent out the rest of her days like teaching people and speaking to large masses of people. She was amazing. I wrote down some of the things that I feel like that I learned that she learned on her expeditions. She learned that chimps need friendly contact and reassurance, and spent lots of time grooming each other, which is, again, so similar to humans. Having gone and got my degree in psychology, it's crazy how human beings, we need touch. Like, we need to be touched, and we need to touch and receive that, especially as young children. We need that in order to grow up with a sound mind and a sound body. Same with chimps. So interesting. She learned that they operate as a community, and just learned how much they are alike to us. She learned that being alone and being in nature was the best way for her to get in tune with herself. She explains that she was never lonely when she was alone for the 2 years in Gombe, because she had herself and she had nature. So she never felt lonely, which I think is really inspiring. She learned that in the forest, death is not hidden. It is all around you. I thought that was really interesting, because as humans, we like try to hide death. We don't like to talk about it. We don't like to shine a light on it. And, because it makes us uncomfortable, but in nature, it's just a part of life. Death is a part of life. And I think that's really just interesting to think about. She learned that we are not the only species that is capable of mental and physical suffering. And she said that being alone in Gombe's rainforest and taking in that every little thing has a role to play in the ecosystem. And often when she'd be in nature, she felt like she was, okay, how do I say this? She said that oftentimes when she's in nature, she would feel like a human observing nature. Like, she didn't really feel like part of it, because every little thing has a role to play, whether it's an ant or a tree or a plant or an animal. Like, every single thing has a role to play in an ecosystem. But she oftentimes felt like she was just observing that, but there were a few times that she felt like she was part of that. And she just explains like how cool that is. And I love that, because we really are nature. Our humanity and our capitalism and humanity fools us to think that we are so disconnected from nature. We are not part of that, but we came from nature, you know, like, we are literally monkeys. We have monkey brain. Like, I mean, look at what's going on in our world right now. The amount of wars and out of sheer pride and greed, that's monkey brain shit. That's monkey brain shit. Like, it's crazy. Anyway, I don't know. I'm going on a rant, but the whole point is we are nature, and the sooner we can, and the more we can like incorporate that into our lives, I think the more we can have more respect for nature and reinvent the wheel, and hopefully move towards a more hopeful future for our planet and for our humanity. I think the majority of humans have transcended monkey brain. I mean, there are certain things that we might never get rid of, like attachment systems and needing community, of course. But as far as warfare and brutality goes, hopefully, I think most humans have transcended that through therapy and, learning to regulate your emotions and raising your consciousness, right? But I don't know. I think most of us have transcended all of that. It's shitty that the important people in the world who are making all of the decisions haven't. So not really sure what to say there. Not really sure what the answer is. I have a few ideas, but probably shouldn't say them on this podcast. But hopefully we will move towards a brighter future with more love, more understanding, and less monkey brain. Let's evolve as humans into something greater and better, and because we're smart and we can do it. So yeah, finally I just want to finish this episode out with my major takeaways from all of this. I mean, I've already kind of mentioned a lot of my thoughts about this story and this experience, but some of my main takeaways were like, believe in yourself. I think, hearing that Jane didn't know and doesn't know that she would have been able to live out this legacy and do what she did without the belief of her mom and the faith that her mom had in her made me realize that, everyone just needs someone to believe in themselves, and that person can be you. Because I don't know, at least for me, I don't feel like I've really ever had, growing up at least, people rooting for me or believing in my dreams. I didn't even feel like I had room to dream, honestly. And, I think a lot of the things I struggle with now would have been mitigated if I either had someone who believed in me or if I believed in myself. And now that I'm an adult and I've gone through therapy and I'm deconstructing my life, I'm realizing that person can be me. But I just think that's like really important. If you want to pursue certain dreams of yours, you need to have someone who believes in you, and that person can be yourself. And I think it should be yourself, and the rest will follow. My note, I actually just covered this, but I learned, we literally are monkeys, but we can transcend our monkey brain if we set our mind to it. I also have been really taking in just, I don't know, what Jane said about being alone and how she was never lonely because she liked to be alone with herself. And she also found so much companionship in nature and observing nature. I just found that inspiring. I found it inspiring that, like being alone, you can learn so much. Like all of the answers that you need are within yourself and in nature. And I believe in that, honestly. Like Jane said that herself. It's also interesting because she said that. And then also my relative Joelle, I know you're listening. You listen every week. Thank you. I love your support. Thank you so much. They also said that to me once as well, that all of the answers are in nature and within yourself. And I think that is a huge takeaway and a reminder for me from all of this research that I've done. And then lastly, don't limit yourself. Even if you find yourself in a minority group, use stereotypes in your favor to get what you want. The reason why I wrote this down, and I didn't have the time to cover it, I think, but fuck it, I'm going to cover it now. When Jane first discovered that chimpanzees could use tools, she was on the cover of National Geographic, and the narrative at the time by all of the community and just the world was that the only reason why she was on the cover of National Geographic was because she had good legs. And Jane, I love her perspective on it, because if it were me, I'd be like, fuck you. Like, are you kidding me? I knew what I was doing. I was brave and I did that shit, It was not because of my legs, but she was like, fuck it. I'm just going to use that to my advantage. And if my legs get people to listen and get people to research about what I'm doing and care about what I'm doing, then fine, I've got good legs. I'll lean into it. I have good legs. And you know what? I just kind of like that perspective. It's very glass half full. And as someone who can typically lean into the glass half empty mentality, I appreciated hearing that. And it's a reminder for me to find the silver lining and, again, be more hopeful. Like I said last week, lean into hope and lean into just positive vibes, I guess. Not always easy, not always possible, but when it is, why not? All right, that is the episode for today. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you learned a thing or two. I learned many a thing. And yeah, I just appreciate everyone here listening. If you've listened to even one episode or care at all, I just appreciate that, honestly. I mean, I'm going to do this whether anyone listens or not, but I just appreciate anyone's support. I have a lot of it. A lot of the people who do listen support the fuck out of me, and I really, really appreciate that. So if that's who you are, you know who you are. Thank you so much. And I hope you all have a lovely rest of your week, whatever that looks like. All right. Me trying to end this, I never know how to end it. I guess that's it. And the end. Okay. I'll sit with you next week. Bye.